If you ever used Unity, you know that feeling when a new version comes out and includes the exact things that you needed for your game that weren't present in the old version.
Excuse me, what the actual
So you download the new version and eagerly open the project just to be met by this.
You've got mail.
If you haven't made a backup, this window decided the fate of your game. You click continue and either everything works or everything breaks. Now today we're gonna do the opposite and see how much you can downgrade a Unity project until it becomes unrecoverable. Also, if you like this type of video and you want to see more of it, just make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. With that being said, let's begin. In order to start the experiment, I need one crucial piece of the puzzle. A game project. Luckily, Unity has a demo called FPS Microgame, which includes a bunch of stuff, so much so that the effects start showing up immediately. I will start on Unity 6 and slowly go down version by version, and to make things more interesting, I'm also gonna track the performance in each version in the editor as well as in a build to see which version has the most performance gain out of all of them. But in order to see the results, you gotta stay until the end. In Unity 6 everything works fine. If it didn't, then a quick play reveals a level with robots that you have to shoot in order to win. It's really just a template for you to build onto. The project comes with 2 playable levels, but we're gonna check the other one later because I didn't know it existed. Nothing really special, it looks like we have a solid foundation to build a game. The frame rate is quite good and the build game even comes with some performance gain up to 400 frames in total at just 115 megabytes. Unity 2023, 2022 and 2021 were easy to fix mainly because apart from some functions not being available in Unity 2021, all I had to do was to downgrade the TM Pro and NavMesh packages from the package manager. Unity 2020 however had some issues. Everything was pink. This kind of behavior scares you at least once in life. Now because I have a lot of experience with this type of Unity version in particular, it's too pink, bro. I know for a fact it's very easy to mess up the render pipeline. Basically, what makes you think this might be an Unreal game, and for that all the materials have to use a custom shader. After changing some settings and restarting, most of the stuff seemed to look good, and here's where the next big change in performance takes place. Now before I continue, I just want to let you know that I didn't actually measure the average FPS in the game, so what you'll see is a rough approximation based on looking at the footage and seeing what seems to be the minimum and maximum of the frame rate on average. From Unity 6 to 2021, the performance is almost identical in the build version with some noticeable improvements in the editor version. What surprises me the most is the amount of useless stuff that Unity added in every new build. Unity 2020 seems to be on some speed, at least in the build version. While in the editor you get between 190 and 240 FPS, in the build executable with just 89 megabytes you get a whopping 500 FPS, which is wild. So here, place your bets in the comments. Which version do you think will get the most FPS in the build version? Keep watching because the answer might surprise you. It seems like every new major version had a big improvement in the render pipeline because Unity 2019 had the same effect as Unity 2020, being shaders, except this time the gun shaders are messed up a little. Here's where I discovered the other level, which starts with a long corridor and gives you a disc launcher. One thing about it, I really like the slow-mo particles. This level is more open, and this time after you defeat a little robot you have to make some parkour to get to the boss of the level, and that's it. While the performance in the editor took a hit, the performance in the build still holds strong, although it's very inconsistent. Unity 2018 marked the end of an era, while on Unity 2019 you had this nice dark mode on Unity 2018 that was a premium feature. And you can imagine. Man, I hate to think how hard it was for people to work in this kind of environment. I mean, at this point just replace everything with a white image because that's the same thing. There were some difficulties with this version because there is no package manager. I later found out that the package manager was a package in itself and you could modify the actual installed packages without having to deal with the package manager at all by changing this file. Then another problem began to show because the entire codebase was just using functions that were only available in Unity 2019 and later, because that's when the project released. So we're adventuring in the unknown, and because most of the stuff had to be removed, the game is barely working and the performance is reflecting that. While Unity 2017 opens, I want you to not forget that at 1000 subscribers I'm making my own game engine and releasing it as open source, at least I hope that. There's already a lot of progress made, so that is another reason for you to subscribe. Wait, who's that? Yo, what? Bob the Blob, how did you get here? What? Anyways, what? Only 10 errors? Can this be? Oh, yeah, that's why. Long story short, Unity 2017 used another method of storing prefabs than Unity 2018, a more obscure one. Now, because the project was just downgraded, I couldn't just open it back in 2018 and have it the same way, because it just corrupted everything. The only thing left for me to do in this situation is to cheat a little. I opened a new project in Unity 6 and made a prefab with everything so that I can come back in 2018 and unpack it there. Now I can open the project back in Unity 2017. Now everything is invisible. Thankfully, after one crash and a delete later, we got everything back. We did lose level 2, but doesn't matter anyway. Apart from a few errors, everything is good enough. Now Unity 2016, wait, there's no Unity 2016. Unity 5 was a game changer, literally. Compared to Unity 4, it had a complete new modern rendering system, real-time global illumination, introduced a 64-bit editor, nav mesh updates at runtime, fixed the gap between Pro and Basic, offering the same features as Pro, except for the watermark, and much more. This is the list ChatGPT regurgitated. It's a lot. Considering this more modern redesign of the whole engine, that means it should downgrade the project directly, right? Right after logging in, we can see that Unity Hub wasn't a thing, as there is a dedicated project browser in every version prior to Unity 2017. Surprisingly, the project just works, like, except for the weird skybox and again some code changes, it looks like everything is working. The performance in the editor is kind of bad. Oh yeah, I skipped Unity 2017 because I forgot to record the part where I tested the editor performance. It did well in the build. Anyways, with just 54 megabytes on average we get like 0. The build crashes. For the next 2 hours I tried everything that came through my mind, but in the end nothing worked. I was determined to call it a day and stop here, since I can't continue testing the performance, and that's when I decided to run it in compatibility mode. For those who don't know, if you're on Windows and want to run an old program, there's this thing called compatibility mode, where you tell Windows to emulate the application on an older version of the OS. In this case, setting it to Windows 8 solved the issue. Now it might be because I did that, but the performance is not great, so whatever Unity did in the last years clearly worked when talking about optimization. And now we're left with Unity 4. Well, that's really unfortunate, but it's the first time I hit a wall, head first. It refuses to open, but that's after downloading this tool because the licensing server is down. The crash logs were saying no helpful information at all, and the crashes were not while loading some specific assets, so I had to dig deeper. If you have Unity on your computer, I want you to try this out. Go to the location where you have your scene files and try to open it with Notepad. You'll quickly realize that everything is in plain text. That's why every version until now had no problem with this. However, when opening a Unity 4 scene file with Notepad, there is complete nonsense because it's binary. Just ones and zeros stored in this file. Now the other assets were imported fine, so that leaves me with only one solution, and that is to write a parser. My parser will run directly into Unity and it will read the file and spawn the game objects in the scene, basically acting as a translator for the new scene files so Unity 4 can understand them. Now don't get me wrong, the Unity 5 scene files will still crash in Unity 4 if we try to open it, but just letting them sit there won't do anything. So I started to write it, and after some failed attempts the whole scene file was translated into Unity 4, apart from some components that don't exist. Now I won't go into details as how the data is stored in plain text in the scene files, but it treats everything as blocks. So my code loads all the blocks and then looks at references and binds it all together. There is a caveat, and that is the materials have to be set to the meshes by yourself. I almost exploded when I saw the performance, like 900 frames for only 45 megabytes. Just sit for a moment and contemplate about that. I have to say that Unity 3 is the last version that I'm gonna test. Again, I have to create a brand new project and include all the assets manually. This time around it's worse. The parser kind of works on this version, but Unity says that the meshes have 3 materials when in reality this mesh has 2. I decided to restart thinking that this would solve the issue, but I wish I didn't. The meshes cannot load, so I decided to stop here, although I managed to record the performance in the editor, which stays at a constant 65 FPS. So this concluded the experiment. If you guess that Unity 4 will have the best performance out of all of them, you'd be correct. Remember that at 1000 subscribers I'll make my own game engine. Until then, God bless and goodbye.